Welcome to the West Point Lake Update. My name's Rocky Millenbine with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. As you can see, I'm not in my uniform as usual, so we've got some surprises to talk about. But we also have a great show lined up with some of my fellow park rangers to talk about the great things that are going on at West Point Lake, so stay tuned.
Why United Way? Because 99 cents of every dollar donated to United Way of West Georgia stays right here to help your neighbors. Yes, 99 cents. United Way makes every penny count. You can count on United Way, and United Way of West Georgia is counting on you. Please give today.
Welcome back. We now have Park Ranger Kevin Parsons here, a familiar face. He was with us last time talking about the hunting program at West Point Lake, but we brought you back because we wanted to talk about, the big handicapped hunts that we have had on the project this year.
Yeah,
Kevin, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for having me again, Rocky. We had our actually had one of our disabled hunts just this past weekend. That was for Alabama sportsmen, but we also had one at the beginning of December. That was for a Georgia sportsman. The one in December, we ended up having 14 hunters show up. They harvested around 12 deer, which was pretty successful.
Yeah.
The Alabama hunters, we had 9 of those guys show up, and unfortunately the weather kind of dampened it a little bit, so we only had 3 deer harvested, but everyone still enjoyed it and had a great time. So.
Yeah, it's funny because we were actually planning on shooting a television show there on site, but the tornado or the severe thunderstorm warnings kind of backed us up
it
from
sure,
that show.
It sure did. About 8 o'clock last Saturday morning, it just started thundering and lightning, and torrential downpour showed up. But I'll be honest, it didn't stop the hunters. We still had 8 out of those 9 hunters actually go into the woods between the rains. They had a little break and sat out there. The first guy didn't come back to camp until about 10:30, so they were die-hard and they were excited about getting out there, so they didn't let a little bad weather stop them.
You're right, and that just shows the dedication that the hunters have for these hunts and how important they are to the hunters, because just because they have a disability doesn't mean that they don't have a love for the outdoors, they don't have a love for being out in the woods and hunting. And with so few opportunities besides these handicapped hunts, they weren't going to let it slip by. Right,
yeah. These disabled hunts, we usually have people who are either in wheelchairs or have prosthetic limbs, their legs. Our main concern is for folks who have mobility issues.
Absolutely.
And we have these in our closed campgrounds where we have easy access to the woods. We have roads, both paved, old logging roads, haul roads, nature trails that are easy for these guys to get down.
That's right.
We've had some folks inquire who have a disability, but it might not pertain to mobility.
Sure.
So we have to unfortunately turn those folks away. We appreciate their interest, but it is for folks who have trouble getting around. This is a great thing for those guys, and they, like I said, they enjoy it every year. So.
And as you mentioned, they're in closed campgrounds, the Alabama hunt in Amity Campground and the Georgia hunt in Holiday and Whitetail, but it really is twofold. It helps control our deer population and gives that opportunity to hunt.
Right, like you just said, it's in our closed campgrounds during the winter time. Those places aren't being hunted, so the deer herd needs to be kept in check. The disabled hunters do a great job of doing that. They harvest a good number of deer every year, usually on average probably anywhere from 9 to 15 deer, depending on the weather conditions, depending on the number of hunters, and of course time of year, obviously. So that really helps us out a lot, control that herd and population when we wouldn't be able to otherwise.
Yeah.
So.
And really hunting, it's the easiest way to control the herd, because if, as you mentioned, if it's not controlled, then you're going to have to deal with things like illnesses going through the deer herd and other bad things.
Yes, when deer herds start to become overpopulated, you do have to deal with malnutrition, with disease, things like that. So it does need to be kept in check. The deer around here, they don't have any real natural predators. like say 200 years ago, we still had mountain lions and a viable population of black bear. So the hunters kind of filled that void and do a great job of keeping that in check. So, and the deer that are left are able to have a healthy bill of living. So
absolutely. And you know, we can't talk about the handicapped hunt without mentioning all the volunteers that make it such a huge success. And I know you've had the great opportunity to work for these guys for several years now.
Yeah, the volunteers that come do the disabled hunt is the Hunters for Christ out of the LaGrange Baptist Tabernacle. They've been doing this with us for 11 or 12 years now. They put in a lot of time. They put in a lot of effort, a lot of hard work. They supply all the food for the hunters. They go out and sit in the hunt spots with them. They track deer that have been shot. They actually skin the deer and process them for the hunters. And just being around those guys, just really good fellowship. You know, those guys they're really fun to talk to, and a lot of them are hunters themselves, so they understand about the sport and everything. But they do a great job, and we appreciate their efforts year in and year out. So.
Yeah, and I had the opportunity to kind of check out the camp before the hunt, and it seems like every year they're just coming up with more ideas for the camp. I know this year, I guess they purchased a huge tent for the hunters to use.
Yeah. Starting the Georgia hunt, they actually have it's probably about a 40-foot long tent that they were able to acquire. One of the other volunteers had it and let us borrow it, which was great. And especially when those heavy thunderstorms came, everybody appreciated it. So, anything from building a big bonfire for everybody, splitting that firewood, that's a lot of work, and they just put so much into it. We, like I said before, we appreciate their efforts greatly. So.
Well, and we also want to thank, you do a lot of work and your fellow NRM Rangers out there to make everything successful, because I know there's a lot of pre-planning, even things like managing food plots in the areas, and a lot of work that's done. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Right. Every year we plant food plots in all our hunting areas and everything, but we also plant food plots in the campgrounds and some of the day use areas as well. And the main reason we do still plant food plots and campgrounds is for the disabled hunt. We're usually planting things like crimson clover, rye, wheat, things like that. Crimson clover will come back year after year, so it's low maintenance for us, but it also provides a good place for these disabled hunters to go set up their stands, set up their hunting spots. It's easy for them to get access to because usually they're very flat. Before the hunt, we also go out, we flag a lot of the hunting spots. We find the best areas for these guys to go where they're going to have a good chance of seeing deer at least. I can't promise they're going to get a shot at them. That's up to the hunter. But we try and put them in good spots. We go through, call all the hunters, make sure they're coming, verify that, and just do whatever we can to accommodate those guys. So.
Yeah, and it's more than just finding deer for them, because it's the combination of finding deer and also areas that are accessible for someone with a physical handicap.
Right, and that's the other thing. When we go out there and look for these hunt spots, you have to look. You can't. It's not like somebody who can walk can go out there and say, "Well, I'm going to go sit up on this hill." You got to think, well, these guys have to be able to push their wheelchairs up. They have to be able to maneuver their mechanical wheelchairs. So you really have to pay attention. How are they going to access this spot? Are they going to, once they get there, are they going to be able to see from the vantage point they're going to have? Because some of these guys are going to sit lower than others. Some guys are going to be sitting up higher. So you really have to take that into account. You have to think about how are they going to swing their firearm around. A lot of these guys have a little bit of trouble with their arms as well. So you just want to go out there and make sure that they have the best opportunity possible to harvest a deer. So.
Yeah. And one thing I always like to do at the handicap hunt is check out some of the equipment that these guys have, because you can tell their dedication by just the equipment that they have. Things like four-wheelers with lifts on the back, and
these hunters have all sorts of contraptions. Like you said, they're serious. They're die-hard. I've seen everything from people just taking a regular wheelchair and putting some like burlap or some other type of blind around it, to people actually having a ladder stand that use hydraulics off of a four-wheeler that actually lifts them up in the air, and they'll have outriggers actually go out and support them. There's guys who have golf carts that they have roofs built on them where they can put blinds around them. Same thing with four-wheelers. They have four-wheelers that have shooting rests on them. These guys have all sorts of contraptions, gun rests that they can attach to their wheelchairs themselves. It's pretty amazing. So.
And you know, these guys, I always get just a great feeling going to these hunts and just talking with everybody, because they have such camaraderie and fellowship between each other. And I know the park rangers have built strong relationships with them. And every year I hear about, oh, we just couldn't wait for the West Point hunt. Yeah,
these guys, you know, this isn't the only hunt that they go to. They'll go other places, you know, whether in Georgia, they'll go other places in Georgia or Alabama. But they always seem to enjoy the West Point hunt a lot. When you talk to these guys, it really puts things into perspective, you know, because of their disability. They don't let it stop them. Absolutely. You know? And it's a lot of fun to talk to these guys and to find out their stories. You know, we have several veterans. We've had wounded warriors come to these events, and it's just a great opportunity to learn from a person who sees the world kind of in a different way than what me and you would see it in. So it's always wonderful to have those guys. And you know, anytime we talk about hunting, we have to talk about, you know, the safety that goes along with having a hunt in an area like this. And I know you guys have everything mapped out to a T and just planned perfectly. Yeah, before each hunt, the Friday before, we'll have a pre-hunt meeting where we'll go over the safety rules and regulations. We don't allow people to shoot down any type of paved road. We don't allow people to shoot across roads. We don't allow them to shoot across coves, across the lake. Each hunting spot has a pre-designated direction where they can shoot. It's a sort of a range. We have the hunt stands or hunting spots set up where hunters obviously aren't shooting at each other. We also require all hunters and chaperones who go out and sit with them to wear at least 500 square inches of blaze orange minimum. Yeah. We don't allow any of the chaperones or any of the people going out and checking, you know, tracking the deer to carry firearms. It's for the disabled hunters only. Sure. So yeah, safety is of the utmost concern, and every year we do a good job. Or excuse me, the hunters do a good job of sticking to those rules and regulations. So. Yeah. And that's always important. Anytime that, you know, firearms are in play, safety is always going to be the utmost. And we're the same way with our hunters in our regular hunting areas. Absolutely. You know, we always put, the Corps of Engineers is always going to put safety first. Absolutely. And that's important. You're right. Well, Kevin, we just thank you for being on the show, but also putting on another successful year of 2 handicapped hunts, disabled hunts, and they went great. And we've got to again say thank you again to Hunters for Christ. Absolutely. You know, they're the engine that drives this event, and they do a wonderful job. And we look forward to next year doing the same thing and having more successful hunts. All right. Well, thanks for having me, Rocky. All right. Absolutely. And stay tuned because we have more to come.
Last June, a tragic accident occurred on Lake Lanier that claimed the lives of 2 young brothers, Jake and Griffin Prince. As a result, Governor Deal vowed to work with the legislature to pass legislation in honor of these 2 brothers.
.08 becomes the law both on the water and behind the wheel on the roads for drunk driving.
This change makes boating under the influence the same as driving under the influence. So this is where the rudder meets the road.
To that end, our agency will be partnering with the Department of Natural Resources here at the boat ramps and on the highways to ensure that it is an incident that does not occur, to the best of our ability to remove not only the folks on the roadways, but to assist the rangers on removing them from the waterways. We begin now working with our partners on the waterways to make boating under the influence an equally unacceptable practice.
So if you're a citizen, a boater, it may become a very common sight that this blue shirt will be a welcoming committee here at the boat ramps, whether you're putting in or whether you're coming out.
Welcome back. With me now I have my fellow park ranger, Steve Rector, and we brought you on today to talk a little bit about our upcoming recreation season. We've made some changes at the campgrounds and some of the parks, and we want to let everybody know about them.
We do. We've made a few changes in the way we're going to operate the campgrounds, and we've also started doing some upgrades at some of the campgrounds as well. So I think one of the more interesting changes that we've decided to try out is over at Whitetail Ridge Campground. This coming year we've decided to take all 58 campsites and make them eligible for reservation.
Yep.
In the past we've been somewhere in the 60-40 range, where about 60% of the campsites were reservable and the other 40% were what we call walk-up availability, which is kind of just a first come, first serve. If you're ready to start camping right now, these sites you can camp on, but they wouldn't be available to reserve for a future date. What we ran into though was some of those sites that were first come, first serve became some of our most popular campsites over there at Whitetail. And so we had a situation where people were renting campsites and then transferring 3 or 4 times, and it became a little difficult to kind of keep track of who's in the campground looking for a campsite, who's in the campground that already has a campsite, trying to find something else. And so this year we decided to go all reservable on all 58 campsites there at Whitetail Ridge.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't mean that if you arrive at the gatehouse ready to camp today that you can't camp. We're not requiring reservations by any means. We're just saying that if you are making plans in advance, that you have the option of reserving any of those 58 campsites.
Sure. And there are advantages, you know, especially for those folks that, you know, we get people traveling all across the country, and the last thing we want is somebody expecting to be able to stop at one of our campgrounds and we don't have a site available.
Right.
And that's the beauty of the reservation system.
Absolutely. We get a lot of people that travel up and down the interstate that really for us, between here and Atlanta, there's not a whole lot beyond West Point Lake. And certainly when you start talking about using the discount pass cards that we honor, the federal discount pass that's referred to as the Golden Age Pass, or now the Senior Pass, or the Golden Access Pass, those people get 50% off camping. And between here and Atlanta, the next place is going to be either Allatoona or Lanier after you leave West Point. So we get a lot of people off the interstate. We're hoping that this will encourage people to stop by here knowing that they are guaranteed to have a campsite on our project for the time that they're interested in.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but that seems to kind of be the trend that the Corps of Engineers is going to, is more reservation type sites in the campgrounds.
It seems to be. Now, Whitetail Ridge, we discussed keeping a few campsites for walk-up availability, first come, first served. But half a mile down the road is Holiday Campground. And so there are plenty of first come, first serve available sites still at Holiday Campground. So that if you do arrive at Whitetail and we have all those sites booked up, you still can just go a half a mile down the road to Holiday Campground. And they have, in total at Holiday Campground, 143 campsites plus 2 group camping areas.
Sure.
So there should always be, unless you're talking Memorial Day, 4th of July weekends, those big 2 holidays, there should always be walk-up availability at Holiday.
Right. And is one of the reasons why you chose Whitetail as kind of this test campground to going completely reservable sites, because it's the smallest campground, Holiday's so close, it just seemed like a correct fit?
It did. It really did. With the 58 campsites, it was a lot less work on us to get those campsites ready. I mean, we want to mark them so that everyone knows that they are pre-reservable. We wanted to advertise well in advance. Whitetail has a longer season, so when we advertised locally in the campground starting in about July, that gave us from July until November to let our existing campers know that this change would take place next year. If we made a July change at Holiday, it would only have given us a couple of months in order to notify our incoming campers that we were making that change. So we chose Whitetail for that reason. It's one of our most popular campgrounds as well. It generally fills up quickly. And also some of the more popular sites at Whitetail, more than at Holiday, were those first come, first served sites.
Yeah.
And so that played a big factor into it as well.
Well, and that might be the difference between somebody coming to West Point Lake and camping here and falling in love with it, or just, you know, if you don't get a good site, then you don't get the full experience of being on the lake, and it could really turn more people towards West Point Lake.
We hope so. We really do hope so. I mean, and that's not the only change that we're making, though. Operationally, that's probably the only one, but we're also upgrading some sites over at Amity Campground. Overall, the project, we're really trying to make better experiences for our campers. And so at Amity Campground, we have some very popular sites. They're sites 32 through 36 at Amity Campground that really were in need of some upgrades just to what we, as park rangers, call the impact pads.
Yes.
Basically what was there was a parking driveway, and that was it.
Yeah.
Picnic tables were sometimes sitting in the grass. There wasn't a whole lot of area for them to have a picnic table and not be sitting in the grass and have the bugs and things around their feet. So we're actually expanding the impact pads over there so that we have a nice little, we call crush and run, small little pieces of gravel that will be set down, packed down, so that they have a nice, smooth, flat area where their picnic table will set, where we'd like them to put their tents if they're going to bring a tent to camp in, as well as an RV or a motorhome. In that same area, the bathroom really needed some attention as well. So we're going in there and really working to make it more handicap accessible.
Yep.
When you went into this particular bathroom, there wasn't a whole lot of elbow room to get turned around in there. And so what we've done is taken the men's side and women's side, and we've made that a one-person bathroom so that you can go in and lock the door, and if you are in a wheelchair or have a walker, that you can move around and actually have some room to get that wheelchair positioned.
Yeah, and there's still a men's side and a women's side. It's
That's right.
just basically going from 2 stalls into one larger stall that's more handicapped.
That's right. It's
accessible
not
for
going to
each.
be a
Yeah.
unisex. There
Yeah.
still will be a designated men's
Yeah.
and a designated women's,
Yeah.
but it'll be a one-person only.
Yeah, and you mentioned the impact pads, and as park rangers, impact pads are very important because we see the campground every day of the year, and we know the impact of tents on campsite on the grass for weeks at a time, for just foot traffic, how it can kill the grass, it can and kind of degrade the site almost. But these impacts, the great thing about that is it's usually softer, completely flat, perfect place to put your tent. There's no negative impact
Right.
to the site, and really a more positive impact for your camping experience because you've got that flat ground. You don't have to worry about the lump that you're laying on with your sleeping bag. So it's really a win-win. And we encourage people to go out and check out these sites because they look amazing. The impact pads are huge.
They are.
They are absolutely huge, and that's just more area for our visitors to recreate. So we're very excited about that. And also those campsites, they were converted a few years back to 50 amp sites. So it's right there. You've got water access, 50 amp sites. They're going to be wonderful, beautiful sites.
They will. They will be fantastic sites because it's on a little peninsula. So there's 32 through 36. I would say there's maybe one site that's a little further off the water, but they are premier sites. If you look at how many people are camping in those campgrounds, 32 through 36, there's always people on those campsites. I mean, now they might not always be completely occupied, but there is always 1 or 2 people in that area. They are fantastic campsites.
Yeah, and they really are. And like we say, we want people to come out and check them out and use them because that's why there's a large investment going into this area, and we want it to be used.
Absolutely.
But we also, I get a lot of questions about like the parking regulations in the campgrounds. And could you elaborate on that to just kind of clarify for everybody that's visiting?
Sure. We have changed a little bit some of our, over the years, I mean, not from last year to this year, but we used to let an awfully lot of cars into these campgrounds, and we realized our campgrounds just aren't capable of handling 6 or 8 or 10 cars per campsite. We talked about Holiday a little earlier having 143 campsites.
Yeah.
Well, if you're letting in 6 or 8 cars per campsite, I mean, we're pushing 1,000 cars in there, and our facilities just won't handle that. So for the last few years, our number has been 4. 4 cars are allowed in per campsite. We still don't have designated paved parking spaces for all those campsites. So what we've asked people to do is go 4 wheels off of the roadway, and then the way we phrase it is parallel with the flow of traffic. But to make it simpler, basically what we're asking you to do is if you've filled up your paved parking areas and any adjacent areas to park, pull your car just off the roadway, whatever the width of your car is, off to the right-hand side of the road. Now, you're driving down the road, just go off to the right, 4 wheels off the roadway. We're going to give you the width of your car on the shoulder of the road is what we're willing to give you. We don't want cars parked in nose first or backed in with the nose pointing to the road. We want you parallel with the roadway. And what we're trying to do is prevent, very similar to what we're doing with the tents, is we're trying to prevent having cars all over the place and really damaging more grass than what is necessary. And so we feel that with these four wheels off the roadway parallel with the flow of traffic, we can get emergency vehicles through if we need to. We can make it safe for people who are going to try to walk through the campgrounds, and we can minimize the damage to the grass.
And you mentioned a lot of good things. These large RVs are going to be able to get through without any trouble. Safety for your personal vehicle, limited impact, and that's what we really want. We're not out there to try to be too tough on people. We just want to keep our facilities as beautiful and pristine as possible.
You're right, and I look at it this way. From my perspective, this is for the campers' safety as well. We never know when an emergency situation is going to arise. We need to be able to get an ambulance through every single area of our campground. We need to be able to get a fire truck through every single road of our campground. And then on the other side, it's a personal property protection as well. I saw this past summer 2 or 3 instances where we were on a one-way road and a camper, following the regulation, pulled off to the left-hand side, 4 wheels off. You know, that is parallel with the flow of traffic. But a big 5th wheel came along and making a left-hand turn, and the back of the 5th wheel caught the side of their vehicle and scratched all down the side of that car that was pulled off to the left.
Yeah.
So that's why we're asking people to go to the right side.
Sure.
Go to the right side even on one-way roads. And that way it will hopefully prevent those kinds of accidents between an incoming or departing camper and a camper who parked their equipment on the side of the road.
Yeah.
We really don't want anyone to get hurt or have any equipment damage while they're here. We want them to be safe, go home, and think, boy, that was so much fun, I'm going back next weekend.
Yeah.
If your car goes home damaged, you're not going to have
You're not going to have that.
kind of
You're not going to
perspective.
have that positive image of West Point Lake that we want you to
No,
have.
That's absolutely right.
Right. And Steve, while we've got you here, we've got to mention to everybody that's watching, the big news here on the show is Steve Rector is now going to be taking over the West Point Lake update. And you know, we're really excited about Steve taking over. You got a wealth of knowledge that you're going to bring to the show, and you're going to roll with it and with new ideas, and it's going to be great.
Well, I guess I'm going to start hosting the show next month. Will be my first month hosting the show. I've been here for a few years, really looking forward to it. But I understand at some point you're going to make an announcement as to why you will be leaving the show. Rocky.
Yes, I've been very fortunate to accept a position in our district office, which is in Mobile. So my family and I were going to be leaving. It's you know, we talked earlier about why am I not in uniform? Well, I've got a position where I'm a program manager, so I don't get to wear a uniform anymore. So we're excited about that. We're going to miss LaGrange. I'm going to miss LGTV in the 3 years that I've been here, but it's going to be an awesome experience, and we look forward to it. And the show will go on. That's the big thing. Stay tuned to here to LGTV every month, because you're still going to see West Point Update and all the upcoming news here at West Point Lake. But Steve, want to just thank you for being on the show, and look forward to watching you take over from here on out.
Thank you, Rocky, and best of luck to you.
All right, thank you, sir. And stay tuned, because we still have some more to come.
LaGrange Commercial Sanitation Service has been serving West Georgia and East Alabama with quality services for over 12 years. With LaGrange Commercial Sanitation, you can count on competitive rates, no long-term contracts, and the convenience of combined billing. LaGrange Commercial Sanitation offers flexible service that ensures your business needs will be met 7 days a week. LaGrange Commercial Sanitation, dependable, on-time services at low rates. It's a smart move.
Welcome back. I want to thank my fellow park rangers, Stephen Rector and Kevin Parsons, for telling us about what's been going on at West Point Lake. And finally, I'd like to thank you for allowing me to come into your homes and tell you about the beautiful lake that we have here in West Point and LaGrange. Continue to watch the show and continue to support West Point Lake. Remember, it's out there for you to use. And when you do visit West Point Lake, please always remember, when you're around the water, wear a life jacket. So take care, and thanks again.